Welcome to the Agency Uplift Podcast, the podcast all about the very unique experience of growing a digital agency, the ups, the downs, the challenges, the learnings along the way. I'm your host, Sean Lang, agency owner of over 7 years and co-founder of Social Commerce Club. And today I'm joined by Brad Quiring, founder of Sidekick Fundraising. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a different episode. First off, though, Sidekick is a hands-on fundraising agency built for small nonprofits. So they help organizations raising under $5 million create better campaigns and grow their donor base without the high price tag of a traditional agency. So first off, Brad, thank you so much for coming on the show. Very, very happy to have you. So I mentioned that this is going to be a slightly different episode, and I'm actually really excited about it because everyone we've had on the show so far has had an agency for 1 or more years. And I actually specifically reached out to Brad to bring him on the show because he is right in the middle of launching his agency. He's in a very different spot. And based on our audience of agency owners, I think that everybody remembers this very formative time when you're just trying to make the best decisions. You're trying to visualize what this thing is going to look like in not even like a year, in a month. What are the decisions that I make? Where do I focus my time? What does good look like? When do I move on to the next thing? There's so many questions and question marks, I guess, is a big thing. So, Brad, I'm really excited to dig into this with you. But before we get into all of that, why don't you walk us through what led you to this moment? What is your origin story?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I'm certainly new at this. I think I'm 5 days since launching at the time of recording this, so still very, very new. Um, I've been working in the nonprofit sector for the last 10 years. It's really the only career that I've known. Growing up, I had this very romantic idea of making a real difference for folks and living and working internationally. And so I think I really worked to set up my life to make that happen. Um, Coming out of school, went and volunteered at a number of volunteer organizations around the world, visiting many countries, and came back and got an undergrad degree in global development studies. Again, thinking I'm going to be this field officer somewhere making a difference for people. Um, right after finishing that, my wife and I got married, and we thought, it's probably a good idea to not move suddenly and uproot our lives into a context that we were completely unfamiliar with. And so we said, let's take a year, maybe 2 years of settling here in Canada, and then we'll move abroad. And in that time, I took my first job and started fundraising off the side of my desk, and absolutely fell in love with it. Um, Completely unexpected, but really loved the work. So I went and got a master's degree in philanthropy and nonprofit leadership. Just opened my eyes to, um, kind of the science of giving and how to do that well, what it means to inspire generosity and really make a difference in people's lives and in community transformation. And so for the better part of the last decade, I've been helping organizations raise money. For the last 6 years, I've been doing that for a large international development organization, raising hundreds of millions of dollars and getting to surround myself with some of the top tier fundraising agencies in the world. Um, and I suppose about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit longer, I think I had a series of things come together that made it clear for me that my time was coming to an end there and that the next thing was on the horizon.
Very cool. Right off the bat, one thing that sticks out to me is that you had the experience to work with other fundraising agencies. So I'm wondering how has that played into you designing your own fundraising agency?
Yeah, it's been massive. I have only good things to say about the agencies that we've worked with. Um, they've oftentimes, I think fundraisers can feel a bit siloed within an organization, and feel like other people within their team even don't understand the things that they're considering or trying to move forward. And so, having an agency in your corner and building those relationships has been really helpful for me, and just in terms of support. Um, B, I think having people outside of the organization that I am embedded in challenge some of my assumptions has been huge and very helpful.
Huh.
And they've helped us grow our giving. And so when an organization is raising $50+ million a year, and we can bring in an agency on a $10,000 to $12,000 retainer um, a month, and they're lifting our giving by 10%, it absolutely makes sense to contract an agency like that.
For sure.
What I've learned in that, however, is most organizations don't have that capacity or not operating at that scale. And so I've said I've valued a ton from learning from agencies over here. But when I speak to smaller organizations who aren't at the place that we were as an organization, who are raising $1 million, if they're employing or contracting an agency to help them lift their giving by 10%, the scale just doesn't work anymore. And so I think I've identified, you know, this group of organizations that has been neglected or priced out of that support that the agencies offer. Um, and so, yeah, that's was kind of one of the factors that's led to the creation of Sidekick Fundraising.
Interesting. So you, from what I'm hearing, is you essentially saw a very underserved market that was an opportunity, A, for you to make impact, but also B, for you to start an agency for as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's very, very cool. It makes a lot of sense. So explain what fundraising looks like to me, someone who's never really experienced it before, in terms of just in general, what would fundraising look like? And then how does it look like from the operations of an agency?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, what does fundraising look like? Uh, Yeah, I think a lot of people from the outside or who don't have experience with this space think you ask for money and it shows up, and go out for coffee with folks, and things just happen. On the back end, though, there's a lot of work and a lot of systems work and figuring out um, what donor acquisition looks like. How do we even get somebody in the door in the first place? Um, how do we then move them along to something like a recurring gift, where they're set up monthly? How do we set up systems so that when it comes to somebody writing a gift in their will, they'd even consider um, adding the organization to that list? Um, and so there's a lot of structure to that, and a, a lot of intention to doing it well. There's also a ton of research and best practice that exists, that even a lot of people within the fundraising space, I think, aren't tuned into. And so there's a lot of work to be done there. When it comes to how an agency can support an organization or a nonprofit organization, um, I think what often happens is organizations hire what I would call like a technical player. They come in and they start putting together emails and they start putting together campaigns and get stuck behind their computers for most hours of the day. When in reality, what I think most organizations actually need are relational players, those who can build deep, meaningful, lasting relationships with people in the community, um, who have an affinity for the cause, who have capacity to give. Um, and those are the tasks that only somebody embedded within an organization can do. The technical pieces um, can be contracted out to just about anybody who knows what they're doing. Um, and that way, it frees up fundraisers who are embedded in an organization to do the things that only they can do. And so that's a big piece of what I think the value is that Sidekick and other agencies can offer, is coming in and taking those things off of people's plates so that they can focus on the things that only they could do.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. You're coming with your very intimate knowledge of a very specific landscape.
Mm.
Very cool. So I want to shift gears here a little bit. We were talking about this before we started recording, and I found it really, really fascinating. For anyone who's not following Brad Quiring on LinkedIn, definitely do that. He's been building in public, which you see a few people do here and there, but it's not super common. And so, first, Brad, can you tell me sort of what the building in public motion looks like for you and why you decided to do it?
Yeah, for sure. Let me start by saying it's not my default mode at all. I'm much more comfortable building in quiet, having it all ready to go, and then
Mhm.
releasing something that I'm super proud of. And so this has been stretching for me. But there's a few reasons why I think it's the right move for me. Um, I mean, first and foremost, I'm borrowing principles that I know have worked in fundraising. And so um, I tell folks all the time that if we are meeting with a major donor, um, I would love you to slap draft on the top of any document that you slide across the table to them. Um, and to say, hey, Sean, we've got this great idea. Here's what we're hearing. Here's what our partners are telling us. We've thought through it, but there's got to be something we're missing. Like, what questions haven't we asked? Who do we need to talk to? What things do we need to consider? And engaging the donor in that co creation is a really powerful step to getting them engaged. I know that to
Interesting.
be true in fundraising. And so I think it's probably true in building out a business as well. So step one for me was, identifying my ICP. And like I said, these are organizations that are typically raising less than $5 million and who hold resources quite tight. So by default, they're scrappy individuals. They're small but mighty organizations. Um, and so I think by building in public, I'm attracting like-minded individuals, people that I already know are going to fit with my values. Um, because they're under-resourced, they're scrappy, they're a bit of the underdog. Um, I think it helps speed up feedback loops, so I'm not overbuilding too quickly for a product that's not going to make sense for my ICP. Um, I think it shows momentum when I can post something like, for example, um, I've been working with the designer in the background and asked for advice on some logo concepts or some color palettes. Um, Put that out there, get a whole bunch of feedback, respond to that feedback, and then a day or two later can turn around a final version. I think that shows that I can actually move pretty quickly, and signals again to these prospective clients that that I can help and move things along fairly quickly. Um, and then by reporting back, I can show that we're listening and actually uh, taking feedback into consideration and showing that I absolutely care about getting the product right for sure. Like, I want that feedback. I want to make sure I don't overbuild. I want to feel like I've designed something that resonates. But maybe more importantly is the participation itself,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So when it comes time to try and think of who might be a good partner in our corner to help us fundraise better, they've already co-created this thing with me, and it's a bit of a no-brainer.
One thing that I really, really love about it is it leverages the power of community in a really, really interesting way because all the reasons that you said, but it also, I think it endears people towards you.
Mm.
And like Brad, I've been watching your building a public journey so far, and I feel invested in it now. I'm like, oh, I've given my two
Yes.
cents on every
Yeah.
one of these posts, and I'm watching it, and I'm seeing what happens. And oh, he didn't take my advice there. Oh, I think he kind of took my advice there. Oh,
Yeah.
he's doing this, he's doing that. Like, I feel invested in your success now, and I think that it's a really, really interesting model, and I just kudos to you for doing that so far. Um, it's still early days, but also you've been making lots of actions, or taking lots of actions. Sorry. What effect has it had so far?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's been huge. I'm certainly further along than I thought I would be. I think partly because I've been building in public. I've from the get-go sought advice on what should I name the agency? Um, who should I be hiring? Send people my way. What interview questions should I be asking? How do I frame this? Like, what headline do I choose here? What tools should I be using for, you know, building out a website? All of these things. Um, so yeah, I think the community building has been neat to see, Sean. Um, I think the number of warm leads that have come my way in my LinkedIn DMs has been more than I would have anticipated.
Really? That's
Um,
great.
and like I said, I'm 5 days in since launch, and I'm at full capacity. I've got 10 clients, and at this point today, I can't say yes to anybody else.
Wow.
Um, which is, yeah, again, further along than I had expected to be.
So I love providing actionable advice to people. And so on the off chance that there's, well, actually, no, let's preface this by saying I'm sure that there's a number of freelancers listening to this who haven't started an agency yet. And so if you could give, say three takeaways or three tips on building in public in the best way possible for your agency, what would you give these people? What three tips would you give them that of things that have worked really, really well for you?
Yeah. Um, Good question. I think the first thing would be to just default to action, um, to just
Always.
try something. Uh, and for me, certainly it can feel scary. I imagine that for most people, it feels scary, but just to put themselves out there. I would say um, be open to feedback. One of the most challenging things is certainly as you put things out there, people have opinions. They're going to have opinions publicly, which is one thing. Um, but my direct mail or my DM is also full of people who don't want to post things publicly, but have very strong opinions on something. So ask them, is it A or B? And they'll say, it's neither for these 10 reasons, right?
Mm.
And that can be a bit challenging. And so knowing when to, um, yeah, focus on that external feedback, but also having the internal clarity of what's needed, I think is an important thing. Um, yeah, what else? Uh,
Those are the big ones so far. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Now I've been seeing you take a lot of information in, a lot of suggestions. I know that you work with a mentor. What's the best advice that you've received so far in your agency journey?
You know, the phrase "nail it before you scale it" comes
Mm.
to mind for me. I am from day one playing the long game. I'm expecting to lose money in my first year, and that's fine with me. I'm trying not to grow too fast and to set up processes and systems that I know are going to scale. And that also doesn't come natural to me. I like to move fast on things. Um, and I'm not very good at documenting it as I go.
You and every other
Yeah.
agency.
So, Sean, I know you talk a lot about setting up core values from day
Hmm.
one, and so things like that have yeah really stood out to me. I'm trying to do my best to set those up so that when I come to hire strategist number two at my agency, there's a playbook that is just very easy to follow,
Absolutely.
and we can grow sustainably for years to come. So nail it before you scale it.
Nail it before you scale it. It's catchy. I've never actually heard it said that way, but it's catchy, and so that's going to be bouncing around in my head for the rest of the day. I love that you brought up core values, and you're one of the very few other agency owners who have ever seen mention it at all in
Hmm.
any kind of social post. Because I feel like when you move out of talking about actionable tactics and you move into more intangible principles, that's when everyone, especially online, when we all want that quick dopamine hit, we just tune out. No one actually wants to talk about core values. Ugh, like what about the thing that I can do that creates an immediate output? But it's that crazy thing where, yeah, it doesn't create an immediate output, but it actually just maximizes the immediate output of all the things that come afterwards. Like it's
Mm.
so critical. How have you seen that come into play with the work that you've been doing so far, with sort of the groundwork and the foundation you've been building?
Yeah. So I think done well, it should be the lens through which all decisions are made. Um, and so certainly went into providing a framework for who I would want to hire and making sure there's
Huge.
good value alignment there. Um, and was super helpful in the onboarding process. So I have one staff at this point, And on day one of onboarding, we spent significant time going through the core values and unpacking what they mean. Now, full disclosure, they may change
Yeah.
somewhat. They're quite generic right now. And what I'd like to get to is having them be quite sticky or catchy, and being based in a bit of like Sidekick lore, that there'd be stories attached to them that would
Yeah.
clearly show what that means in practice.
Hmm.
But that's hard to do 5 days in. Um,
It's hard to do 5 days in, but I will say, just because you haven't lived the stories yet doesn't mean that you can't come up with theoretical
mm,
circumstances or situations of, if this were to happen, here's how we would act
sure.
being guided by core value A or
Yeah.
B. There's totally nothing wrong with that.
Fair. Yeah. Great reminder. Yeah.
Um, so again, we're 5 days in, which is kind of crazy. Let's just take stock first. You're 5 days in, you're already at capacity, and you've already made one hire. So clearly things are working. Clearly you're making some good decisions. I love that. I love that you're prepared to lose money, but with how considerate and thoughtful you've been so far, I would say that as long as you can maintain complete visibility and forward facing visibility on cash flow,
Mm,
that shouldn't be an issue. Again, those are systems you need to set up. Trust it coming from a guy who ran an agency without cash flow visibility for probably close to a year. Once you get it, and maybe you already have it, but if once you get it, you start to realize, oh, I can be so much more strategic. Oh, I can invest in this. I was waiting to make a hire. I can actually make another hire right now. Well, that completely changes what I focus my time on. It's very, very critical. But with that knowing smile, I feel like you've already got that under control.
yeah. I think so. So I'm prepared to lose money. Walk through the budgeting process. I think I'm break even after fully paying myself and my employee at this point, and anything else is uh, is gravy at this point for the rest of the year. Um, yeah, but I've set myself up so that I can take some swings in this first year and really focus on nailing those systems and doing business development so that in the long run we can run.
Very, very cool. I I have so much faith in Sidekick Fundraising. Just hearing how you have it set up and how methodical you're being, this is great. That being said, what are some challenges that you are anticipating? Either challenges or maybe even like big question marks where you're like, I'm not really sure what happens when that comes.
Yeah, I am totally new to this, so it's probably everything, Sean. Everything feels new to me, and like I'm just figuring it out as I go. Um, a few challenges come to mind. One is I think part of the reason I am where I am 5 days in is I have a ton of relationships with fundraisers doing this work day in, day out. I've spent time building up that network, um, but quickly realizing that for this to be able to scale, I can't be involved in all or much of the client delivery work. And so training, onboarding, coaching is super important. And I'm trying to figure out how to do that well for my employees. But then also, how do I create the expectation with clients that I'm part of the sales cycle, I'm part of onboarding, and then I'm stepping back and they're not getting access to me.
Hmm.
Um, so that's something I'm walking through right now and trying to be very clear from the get go. But if you have specific tips or tricks for me, I'm
I do. I do.
all ears. Yeah, give it
I
to
do.
me.
So obviously it gets easier the more people you have on the team, because if you are the only guy, then you are the only guy. So now it's you and one strategist. But one thing that I've found is quite important is to obviously, like, when you sign a client and then you're onboarding a client, is to have very obvious milestones,
Mm,
like a kickoff call. But one important milestone I find is a handover. That's
right.
making it very, very visible that I'm taking this and I'm handing it to somebody else. But you're doing that with the client on a call. You're making the introduction. You say, I'm still here, but as of now, so and so, they're so good at X, Y, and Z. They've got your back. All your main
Yeah.
stuff is going to go through them. I'm still here. If you need to reach out, and I will check in with you periodically, I'm still
Mm,
here. But the handover, the passing of the baton. If I find that if that like very obvious passing of the baton never really happens, or happens in a way that the client feels like they're being pawned off on a
Sure.
junior person or whatever, then you never really get out of that. You always become the bat signal, or like the fast call, or the first call. So yeah, one piece of advice: make the handover very obvious and have it defined in advance. This is exactly what we want to accomplish. Here's how we're going to accomplish it. Here's how we want the client to feel when it
Yeah.
happens, and plan for those like emotional hits in a way. Like we want this to feel like, oh, there's more people. There's more people on my side. There's somebody else who I'm going to be working with directly, and Brad is still there. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. I like that.
Awesome. Well, Brad, is there anything else that I didn't ask you that I should have?
Ooh, good question.
How about this? How about this? Because I'm sure that at some point, um, small organizations who need to fundraise will listen to at least parts of this episode, if not the whole thing. So, um, give us a quick elevator pitch on Sidekick Fundraising in a way that some of these people might actually feel the urge to reach out to you afterwards.
So, yeah, Sean, as I mentioned before, I think a lot of organizations can benefit from the expertise of a fundraising agency. Problem is that most organizations have been priced out of that type of support. And so, as I've been building Sidekick, I've been talking to a lot of organizations and trying to figure out a model that still makes sense at an affordable rate. And so we're well below cost of a traditional agency. Um, and we do that, by adjusting our model a little bit. So typical agency model is we're going to come in, we're going to run your fundraising comms for you. We're going to do the full done for you package. Along the way, you're going to provide feedback and approve things as we go. So these are your print newsletters, these are your direct mail campaigns, these are your donor surveys, these types of things. What I've heard from organizations is that we actually have some of that capacity to do that in-house, and we want to be able to do that long term. And so we're going to flip that relationship, and we're trying to say, hey, we're going to do this work with you. So we're going to come in, we're going to do three things. We're going to help you come up with a plan for the year in a very simple way that anyone who picks up this one-page piece of paper can understand it and know what the next step is. So it's not this ream of paper that sits on a shelf behind you and no one actually understands. Next, we're going to help you develop up to 6 projects in a year. And we'll figure out the balances that makes the most sense for you, not for this other big organization, or not how we did it with client X, Y, and Z over here. We're going to figure out what makes sense for you. And then we're actually going to help you implement it. So we're going to jump on a kickoff call 14 weeks before the project is going to go out to Canada Post. We're going to give you our worksheets and resources so that you can do a first draft well. But then we're going to come alongside you and we're going to help you refine it. We're going to go beyond just feedback and not just say, Sean, I think you did this thing well, but this thing needs some work. We're actually going to take the content that you've given and put your best foot forward. So based off of all of the research that we've done, all of the best practice that's out there, all of the A/B testing results that we've done in the past, this is your best foot forward. Then you're going to review and approve it at that point. And then once you're happy with it, we'll move it through to design for you. And so, the Sidekick, the name, comes from really wanting to be a support to you, not wanting to take over, not wanting to come in and assume we're going to be the hero, but we're that backup that can help you do more and raise more money so that you can do more good in the world, essentially. So we've got that package. That's our done with you package. We do have the done for you package for the organizations that, just want it taken off their plate for a little while. And then we've got a done by you package, which means you're going to come in, you're going to bring your own strategy, but you just want a second set of eyes to look at something before it goes out. So those are our 3 packs: done for you, done with you, and done by you.
Very cool. Again, very well thought out. I would expect nothing less from you at this point. Brad, thank you so much for coming on here. This was a really, really interesting conversation. Where can people find out more about you and Sidekick?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best place. Search for my name, Brad Quiring. It is
I've
still
been
early.
pronouncing it wrong the entire time. I
I
should have
know.
checked.
I thought about it. It's all good. Um, I don't even have a website yet. That's how early this is. I've got a Google Doc that I'm pointing people towards, but you can access that from my LinkedIn page.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.